If your dog has been scratching, biting, or chewing at their skin so much that you're starting to worry, stick with me for the next few minutes, because I'm about to share 3 home remedies that most vets never bring up during a regular visit. And remedy number 2 is the one that genuinely surprised me the first time I saw how well it worked, because it's something almost every dog owner already has sitting in their kitchen right now, and most people are using it completely wrong. Here's the thing, nobody really tells you when your dog starts scratching constantly. Most vet visits for skin allergies follow the exact same pattern. You bring your dog in, the vet takes a quick look, and you walk out with a steroid shot or a prescription cream that calms things down for a week or 2, and then the itching comes right back like nothing ever happened. That's not because your vet doesn't care, and it's definitely not because they're hiding something from you on purpose. It's simply because a 15-minute appointment isn't enough time to dig into what's actually causing the allergy in the first place, so they end up treating the symptom instead of the root problem. And that gap right there is exactly what we're going to fill today. Before we get into the remedies themselves, it helps to quickly understand why dogs get itchy skin in the first place, because that's going to make everything that follows make a lot more sense. And it's going to help you figure out which of these 3 remedies your dog needs most. Skin allergies in dogs usually come from one of 3 sources: environmental triggers like pollen, dust mites, or grass; food sensitivities, which are far more common than most owners realize; or flea allergy dermatitis, where even a single flea bite can set off days of intense, relentless itching. The tricky part is that all 3 of these can look almost identical from the outside. Red skin, constant scratching, small bald patches, and that faint musty smell that shows up once the skin gets irritated for too long. So a lot of owners end up guessing, trying random shampoos and sprays from the pet store, spending money on products that were never designed for their dog's specific problem, and wondering why nothing seems to stick. Now let's get into the first remedy, because I promised you a fast payoff, and I'm going to deliver on that right now. The first one is a simple oatmeal soak, and I know that sounds almost too basic to matter, but the way most people do it at home is actually wrong, which is exactly why it doesn't work for them. You don't just dump oats into bath water and call it a day. You want to grind plain, unflavored oats into a fine powder using a blender or a coffee grinder until it feels like flour between your fingers, almost like baby powder. Then you mix that powder into warm, not hot, water until it turns slightly milky and starts to feel silky against your skin when you rub your fingers together. Let your dog soak in that water for about 10 minutes, gently working it into the itchy areas without scrubbing, because scrubbing irritated skin actually makes the inflammation worse instead of better. The oats contain natural compounds called avenanthramides, which calm inflammation at the source and reduce that constant urge to scratch. Groomers have quietly used this trick for years, but it almost never comes up in a standard vet appointment, simply because it's not something that can be prescribed or billed for, so it just falls through the cracks of a normal visit. But here's where it gets interesting, because oatmeal soaks only handle the surface level irritation. They calm things down for a while, but they don't do anything for what might actually be causing the allergy underneath the skin, and that's exactly where the next remedy comes in. Stick around, because remedy number 2 is the one I mentioned right at the very start, and once you see how simple it is, you're going to wonder why nobody told you sooner. Before we move on, if this is already helping you understand your dog's skin issues a little better, do me a quick favor and hit that like button, and if you haven't subscribed yet, now's a good time, because we're about to get into the 2 remedies that actually target the root cause instead of just calming the surface for a day or 2. All right, let's keep going. The second remedy is coconut oil, but not in the way most people use it. A lot of owners just scoop out a bit of coconut oil and rub it directly onto their dog's skin and call it a day. And while that can help a little with dryness, it misses the bigger benefit entirely and leaves most of the value on the table. Coconut oil contains something called lauric acid, which has natural antimicrobial properties, meaning it can help control the yeast and bacteria that quietly build up on irritated skin and make the itching so much worse over time. The trick is using it 2 ways at once instead of just one. A small amount rubbed gently into the worst affected patches a couple of times a week, and a small amount added directly to your dog's food, usually around half a teaspoon for a smaller dog and up to a full tablespoon for a larger breed, worked in gradually over about a week, so their stomach has time to adjust without any upset. When you combine the topical application with the dietary approach, you're tackling the problem from both the outside and the inside at the same time, which is exactly why this one tends to outperform almost anything you'd find sitting on a pet store shelf. Vets don't usually bring this up because dietary changes take several weeks to show visible results, and most appointments are built around fast, immediate fixes rather than patient, longer-term solutions that actually address the cause. Now, here's something that trips up almost every single dog owner watching this, and it's worth pausing on for a second before we move forward. If your dog's allergy happens to be food-related, coconut oil alone won't fully solve the problem because you're still feeding the trigger to your dog every single day without realizing it. So how do you actually figure out whether food is the real problem behind all of this? That question leads directly into the third remedy, and this one is less about a single product and more about a method, which is exactly why it tends to get overlooked so often in everyday conversations about dog allergies. The third remedy is what's called an elimination diet, and I know that might sound clinical or complicated, but stay with me here because it's simpler than it sounds, and it's honestly the single most powerful tool on this entire list. The idea is to strip your dog's diet down to one single protein source and one single carbohydrate source that they've genuinely never eaten before. Things like duck and sweet potato, or venison and peas, for a period of about 8 weeks straight. During that time, no treats, no table scraps, no flavored medications, nothing else sneaking in at all, even though that part is genuinely the hardest part for most owners to stick to. If the itching noticeably improves during those 8 weeks, you've just found strong, real evidence that food is a major piece of the puzzle. From there, you slowly reintroduce old ingredients one at a time, waiting a few days between each one, watching closely for any flare-ups, which tells you exactly what to avoid going forward for good. This is essentially the same method veterinary dermatologists use in specialist clinics, but it rarely gets explained in any real detail during a normal visit because it takes genuine commitment from the owner over almost 2 months, and most 15-minute appointments simply don't have room for that kind of conversation. Here's a mistake that quietly makes almost everything on this list less effective, and I want to flag it clearly before we go any further. A lot of owners try to run all 3 of these remedies at once, right from day one, and then can't figure out which one is actually working, or worse, they give up on all 3 within a week because they don't see instant, dramatic results. Skin healing in dogs takes real time, usually somewhere between 2 and 6 weeks before you see a lasting, noticeable difference. So patience genuinely matters here more than almost anything else you could do. There's also a detail that a lot of people miss entirely, and it might honestly be the most overlooked cause of ongoing skin irritation in dogs: fleas. Even if you don't see a single flea anywhere on your dog, a flea allergy can be triggered by just 1 or 2 bites a week, which is nowhere near enough for you to actually spot with the naked eye, but more than enough to keep your dog absolutely miserable around the clock. So before you assume the problem is environmental or food-related, it's worth ruling fleas out completely with a proper vet-approved prevention product, because otherwise you could do everything right with these 3 remedies and still not see the full improvement you were hoping for. Let's take a second to talk about what actually happens in the background when you combine these 3 approaches together instead of using them one at a time in isolation. The oatmeal soak calms the immediate surface irritation, so your dog isn't sitting in constant discomfort while you work on the bigger underlying picture. The coconut oil, used both on the skin and in the food, helps control the microbial side of things, while also quietly supporting the skin barrier from within. And the elimination diet identifies whether there's a deeper food trigger driving the entire cycle in the first place. Used together over several consistent weeks, these 3 things address the problem from almost every angle at once, which is honestly more thorough than what a single 15-minute vet visit is usually structured to offer. I also want to touch on something a lot of owners ask me about once they start trying these remedies, which is timing and how to actually build this into a normal daily routine without it becoming a huge chore. The oatmeal soak works best about twice a week, not every single day, because bathing too often can actually strip the natural oils from your dog's skin and make things worse rather than better. The coconut oil, on the other hand, works better as a small daily habit, a little bit on the skin and a little bit mixed into the food, almost like a supplement your dog barely notices after the first few days. And the elimination diet is really more of a background project running quietly for those 8 weeks, something you're managing in the kitchen rather than something you're actively doing to your dog every day. Once you see it laid out that way, it stops feeling overwhelming and starts feeling like something you can realistically stick with, which honestly matters more than any single remedy on this list, because consistency is what actually produces results here. It's also worth mentioning that different breeds tend to lean toward different causes, and knowing this can save you a lot of guesswork. Breeds like Bulldogs, Labradors, and German Shepherds are more prone to food-related skin issues, while breeds with thinner coats like Greyhounds or Chihuahuas tend to react more strongly to environmental triggers like pollen and dust. This isn't a hard rule, and plenty of dogs break the pattern completely, but if you're not sure where to start, it can point you in a reasonable direction before you commit to 8 weeks of careful diet tracking. Now, a word of caution here, because this part genuinely matters and I don't want to skip past it. Home remedies are excellent for mild to moderate skin irritation, but if your dog has open sores, is losing large patches of fur, seems to be in real visible pain, or if the itching is affecting their sleep and appetite, that's your clear sign to get an actual in-person vet evaluation, potentially including proper allergy testing. Because at that point, you're dealing with something that needs professional treatment running alongside anything you try at home. These remedies are meant to support your dog and give you real, accessible options, not replace proper veterinary care when it's genuinely needed for something more serious. If you've made it this far into the video, you're clearly someone who actually cares about doing right by your dog. And I genuinely appreciate that, because a lot of people click away long before reaching this point. So here's a quick question for you, and I'd honestly love to know the answer. Which of these 3 remedies are you going to try first? The oatmeal soak, the coconut oil, or the elimination diet? Drop a comment down below and let me know, because it genuinely helps me figure out what to cover in future videos, and it helps other dog owners scrolling through the comments see what's actually worked for real people dealing with the exact same situation. One more thing before we start wrapping up. If you know someone whose dog has been dealing with nonstop scratching, biting, or those annoying red patches that never seem to fully heal no matter what they try, go ahead and send this video their way right now. It could genuinely save them a lot of frustration, and it could save their dog a lot of unnecessary discomfort too. Sharing something like this costs you absolutely nothing, but it might genuinely change how someone's pet feels by this time next week. To wrap everything up, let's quickly go over these 3 things one more time. Start with the oatmeal soak to calm the immediate itching, so your dog gets some real relief right away. Bring in coconut oil both on the skin and mixed into the food to work on the deeper microbial and dietary side of things over time. And if the problem keeps coming back, no matter what you try, commit to a proper elimination diet to find out once and for all whether food is the real trigger sitting behind everything. Combine all 3 of these together, rule out fleas along the way, and give the whole process real time to work, and there's a genuinely good chance you'll see a calmer, more comfortable, happier dog within just a few weeks. Thanks so much for watching all the way to the end. If this video helped you even a little bit today, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what's coming next, because there's a lot more useful, practical content like this heading your way soon. Take good care of that dog of yours, and I'll see you in the next one.